We got a question about creative finance deals. Do you get a lot of seller finance? Have you heard of Sub2?
Anytime anyone even says the word creative financing, I'm like, shut the f up.
That Sub2 is borderline unethical. You have all these influencers teaching really young people how to do this stuff and not really explaining to them the ethics of it, the legalities of it, the dangers and risks of it, and how you could really destroy somebody else's life if you're not careful. The bank won't do anything about it because banks are lazy. All right, welcome back to the Jaden and James Real Estate Podcast, where we talk about real estate and whatever else comes up. James, how's it going?
Still going.
All right,
plugging away. What do we got here?
Let's jump into it.
We got a question about creative finance deals. Do you get a lot of seller finance? Have you heard of Sub2? What do you think about any non-conventional way?
I don't like any of it. I honestly, anytime anyone even says the word creative financing, I'm like, shut the f up, get out of here.
Doesn't it make sense if that's the thing that can push a deal through? For example, if someone buys a house 3-4 years ago and they got a 2.5% interest rate and now rates are 5.5%, 6%, doesn't it make sense to try to just seller finance the equity that's there, or
you can't
pay someone money to be able to take over the loan?
You can't do it. There's no way there's really no great way to keep a loan and transfer an asset. Trust me, I would do it if I could. I have been in this business for.
What's this guy's name, Brady? Or do we know this guy? I don't know who this guy is.
I don't think I've seen him before.
I have not seen him before.
I thought it was somebody else.
I kind of like what he's saying so far. It's not Mr. Clean.
It should be in the notes on the bottom.
It should be up in the notes, shouldn't it? Who this is? Iced coffee hour. Who's below the iced coffee hour there? Jack. No, it's not Jack. Jack and Graham. Okay, it's not. Those are the other two guys. We probably should know who the guy is before we start talking. I don't know.
I have no idea.
Okay.
You'd think they would put it right here somewhere.
Yeah, that's weird. Okay, I guess it doesn't matter. I'm really curious as to who he is. Okay, let's get back to just talking about it then.
Is there any of these videos have his name on it?
Okay, he was just saying something, and I thought you were going to jump on it, and I didn't. So Sub2.
Yeah, you can if you want to talk about it, go for it.
Yeah, I'm just saying that I agree with him a little bit on that. Pace Moby. Unless you're a very high end financial person and understands numbers, he's teaching this shit to 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds that, they think they're going to get rich fast. And then they're telling the homeowners, they're screwing people up. There's a lot of, I'm waiting for all the lawsuits to come out because of it. Now I will tell you, we have a couple of them that are Sub2, but you and I own them. So we know that we can take it to the market or pay off the loan if it gets called. But other than that,
I was going to say, I think we probably 90% agree with what this guy is saying. Well, he's saying all creative finance. So that's where I have a problem with him. Like there's creative finance, and then there's Sub2, which is a little part of creative financing. But when you say creative finance, there's a whole world of that where 90% of creative financing is not Sub2. But he's kind of saying they're the same thing, I think. And creative finance is really a great thing. The Sub2 part of it, I mostly agree with what he's saying. That Sub2 is, is it straight up illegal? Not quite straight up illegal, but it's very close.
It's borderline ethical.
It's very close to being illegal. It's borderline unethical. So you've got to be really careful. I almost feel like Sub2 is almost like what wholesaling was 10 years ago. You have all these influencers teaching really young people how to do this stuff and not really explaining to them the ethics of it, the legalities of it, the dangers and risks of it, and how you could really destroy somebody else's life if you're not careful. It's like, well, we can make a lot of money doing this, though. Well, sure, but you can also destroy a lot of people's lives doing it if you don't know what you're doing.
Right.
And Sub2 is really dangerous. So if you're really seasoned in real estate and you have capital and you have backing and you can stand behind a deal, then I think sub-2 can be okay. And we've done some sub-2 deals, and
but I don't think they're going to do sub-2 then, Jaden. I think the educated person is going to figure out another
Well,
avenue.
we've done a
or
couple
have
of them.
capital,
I mean,
or
we've done sub-2 deals. We're going to do one right now. We're doing one right now, actually, that makes a lot of sense to do. But the difference is, here's the difference. If you're going to do a sub-2 deal, what you're essentially saying is the person that owns the house and has the mortgage is going to transfer the deed to the house to you or your company, but the mortgage is going to stay in their name. Because if the mortgage doesn't stay in their name, it needs to get paid off, and then there's no value to that really good mortgage. The mortgage is gone.
right.
So it has to stay in their name. So why would a person transfer a house to you and keep the debt in their name? Well, mostly because they're going to foreclosure and they're going to have their credit destroyed if they don't do something like that. That's mostly why it would happen. And that's this deal that we're doing right now is that is the kind of the situation that it's in. But we are very careful to explain to these people exactly how this works, exactly how it affects them, what the risks are. Also, the bank can call their loan due. There's a risk of the bank saying, hey, we noticed you transfer the deed to somebody else. Our mortgage says if you do that, you got to pay the mortgage off. So go ahead and pay the mortgage off. You got 12 days to pay us $300,000.
Right.
And again, this is the original owner that gets this letter, not the people that own the house. So that then they get they don't have $300,000 to pay the mortgage off. So then they're going to be going to foreclosure because they're in default essentially. So we as the sub-2 buyer have to be in a position where we can quickly come up with the cash to pay that mortgage off if something happens. And that's why we will only do deals like that where we know if something happens, we can buy this thing out really quickly and get the whole thing gone. We also have to be comfortable with the purchase price of the house being at a point where if we have to go buy the whole thing out, it still makes sense for us to do this, right? Because a lot of these deals are like, oh, the house is worth $300,000. There's a 3% mortgage at $295 or $305 or whatever. But since the mortgage is so cheap, it's a good deal, right? So you should go buy this sub-2 with a $300,000 mortgage for a house that's worth $300,000 that needs $20,000 to work too. And you should just buy that house and take the mortgage over. Well, what if in 2 months something happens and you have to pay that mortgage off for $305,000 or whatever? You're going to lose a bunch of money on that deal, And this happens. So there could be a lawsuit with the original seller. The bank could get in a lawsuit. The bank could foreclose. These are really hairy deals. And it does frustrate me how, Pace is a really smart guy. And he has the sub-2 thing with the, that, whatever. It frustrates me how casual he is about all this stuff. It feels exactly like 10 years ago when people were teaching about lying about assigning contracts. Here's how you get a contract on a house. Here's how you lie about it. Here's how you wholesale it and make money. And then, just train a bunch of young people on how to do this unethical stuff. And I feel like the sub-2 thing is real similar to that. And it's like a way to make money, but like you got to be really careful. I don't want to go through life and cause a lot of damage to other people. Like, who wants to do that? That catches up to you, man.
Hey, sorry to get you out of that video. Just got a quick message for you. Are you looking to quickly fund your next real estate investment with low rates and less requirements? If that sounds like you should look into Kiavi. Kiavi is a hard money lender trusted by professional real estate investors across the whole country. Take advantage of today's competitive terms and quick close loans to fund your next property. If that sounds like something you need, check out the link in the description down below to check out Kiavi. And now let's get you back to the show.
What goes around comes around. And if you start messing people's lives up, it's not worth any amount of money if you're causing damage to somebody else's life through the stuff that you're doing. And to do the sub-2 stuff properly, I mean, like, look at us. I've been doing real estate for over 20 years, and we will barely do this stuff. So that should tell you something, how dangerous it is. But
I was just going to give an example, Jaden, of one of the sub-2s that we actually had and how we approached it, because I don't know what the threshold that Pace teaches, but some of these guys teach, hey, if it has any kind of cash flow, great, take it. And
yeah.
What I mean, from $50 to $100, it's not negative. But
even negative equity, they'll take negative equity as long as it cash flows.
Right. So what we did, it was a townhouse that we got Sub2, and we contract for deed it back out. And so we gave the lady $20,000, or what was it? It was for a 160 mortgage. I think we gave her $10,000, and we got the $10,000 back because we took a $40K down payment. And crap, am I out? Can you hear me?
You're back now.
Oh, where did you lose me at?
10K down payment.
Okay, so a 10K down payment. That's how we bought it, and then we fixed some of it up, and then put a family in there. Asked for 40K down, and our mortgage on this is Sub2 is $550 a month, and we collect $1,785 on it.
Yeah.
That
And that's
is a hell of a deal.
there's enough financial room in that deal where there's enough equity in it, there's enough cash flow in it, that if something goes sideways with the original Sub2 mortgage, we will step in and take the mortgage out and pay it off.
Yep.
And we will go pay it off cash, or we'll go get a bank loan, or whatever we're going to do to take that out, because it's worth it for us financially to take that risk. But
All right,
when you
I want to
start
hear
seeing
I want to hear what this guy has to say, because I think, like you said, we've already been mumbling a lot.
Well, I wanted to say one more thing, because I wanted to say creative financing that's not Sub2 is actually really good. And like, if you get someone to seller finance a house to you, it's usually really good for the seller, and it's really good for the buyer, and it can be completely ethical. Like, it's the kind of deal like is a win-win-win deal all the way around. So I hate that this guy is saying creative finance. No, that's really, really wrong. Creative finance.
Well, because sometimes you have to think outside the box. Hey, way to give the thumbs
even
up.
if you don't have to. I mean, if somebody owns a house free and clear that's worth $300,000 and they don't need the money because they're say they're retired, maybe they want an income stream. They don't want all the money right away. Give them a down payment and pay them a monthly payment on a mortgage that they hold the mortgage. That's going to be amazingly good for them and amazingly good for you. So those are awesome deals. Anyway, go ahead and play the rest of this.
15 years, done billions of dollars in deals, not a single deal have I been able to have the original loan kept.
So we've spoke to this guy Pace Morby, and this is like his whole big thing. He's got like a couple thousand units or something. He talks about it. He's like the guy on YouTube that talks about creative financing, specifically also Sub2, which is basically you go in, you take over the mortgage payment. So you just send the money. And then I think what he does is he puts the deed in a trust or something. And it doesn't count for a sale. And then, you have the due on sale clause of the loan.
Yeah, and that's when it
which
transfers.
I think it's he's only ever been called on once out of his thousands of deals that he's done for this.
But doesn't he remain liable for the asset, liable for insurance, liable in litigation?
So you're saying if he's
the owner. How is that any different? How is that really substantively any different than a lease with an option to buy?
It's similar. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's not a transfer of an asset. I'm not saying it's dumb. I think a lease option can make sense, but it's just, my understanding is that he would still be liable for anything and everything. Maybe in commercial real estate, you can.
So that was one of the things that we said. You're still made a transaction. You're still liable to make the payments. But unfortunately, what you said, Jaden, is now you're bringing in, you could destroy somebody else's life, their financial life, because you didn't pay something. So.
Yep.
All right.
There's a lot of things here. There's the ethics. There's, how you treat people. There's the law, what the law says. And the thing is like, even if you do everything legally, which I'm sure Pace does, because he's, got probably good lawyers and stuff. At least in Minnesota, if somebody feels like things didn't go well for them in a transaction, they will sue you. And I'm sure that's true in other states too. And it doesn't matter whether you did anything wrong or not. You're still going to get sued. And if you get sued, you've got to go pay for attorneys and show up in court and deal with lawsuits. And I hear Pace, I always think about scalability of business systems. He has 1,000 units or 2,000 units. I'm like, maybe he's got this figured out but I'm just like, how many lawsuits is he in all the time? I just sit there and think, like, if you get 1,000 units on sub-2s, like, how often are you getting sued? Over something? Probably a lot. I mean, the few sub-2 deals we've done, like a handful, like I think our hit rate on something going wrong on them is like 25%. So, and it's usually like we've gotten attorneys involved. We've like been very transparent about everything and communicated everything and documented everything. But something changes in the seller's life 2 years later, and they no longer want this mortgage attached to them. But all the documents say that they agreed to that this mortgage would keep being attached to them.
Yep.
But they don't like it anymore. Well, at the end of the day, the fact that they don't like it anymore is a problem. Even if you covered your bases and did everything right, it's still going to be a problem for you.
Right.
So, and that we've found that to be true, and that's why we shy away from them. But he mentioned lease options, which I think is really interesting. A lease option is probably the cleaner way to do this kind of deal with somebody, and without all this hair of a sub-2 deal. Because if you do,
but doesn't that trigger the due on clause though? Because again, remember,
an option to buy is not actually buying. So the mortgage says if you sell the property, you have to pay the mortgage off. Well, if you do an option to sell the property, that's not selling the property. So also the options don't have to be recorded anywhere. Like you just have a private option contract with somebody. At least it's
you're not really selling it. You have the option to sell it. Is what you're saying.
It's an option to sell it at a fixed price. And I've thought about this for years. Like that is a pretty clean way to do it. I think we've never done that.
Mm-hmm.
But I've certainly thought about that. Like that seems like a cleaner way to do it. That this property's not being sold, so there's no trigger of the mortgage. But one problem with the lease option, I think why people don't like to do it is that the original seller still holds the deed. So the problem is, say 5 years down the road, you go, okay, I want to sell my interest in that property now. Well, you don't have the deed, so you're going to exercise your option to get the deed. What if the seller died or moved or won't talk to you and won't cooperate? Like they can prevent you from getting the deed because they have it. And so you don't really have total control over the situation in that kind of a transaction. Right. And that's definitely a risk. So that's probably why people don't do that often.
Let's see what else he has to say, because again, I think he's 100% what we think.
Yeah.
You can isolate that risk a little bit, and maybe it's a little bit different, but in residential real estate, there's really no great way to do it.
So you're saying the seller in this instance, if you are selling a house sub-2 to someone else, so sub-2 is like when you just take over the payments basically, then as the seller, you're still liable for anything that could go wrong with the house.
Because you probably created some type of joint venture or trust or whatever it is.
So
the other thing too is you have to remain the sole owner. If there's any other ownership, then the bank can call the loan.
Mm-hmm. But he's been called by the bank once, but he said most of the time the banks just want to ignore it because this is just one small thing that's been sold off and sold off and sold off.
I mean,
I'm
not going to risk my loan.
As long as they're performing, then
I
that's
agree
all that matters.
I agree that you're right.
And there's also, I will say, there's added benefit to the seller that we haven't even considered.
He seemed annoyed, he gets it.
I think what you're seeing is that this guy he's probably a pretty astute business person, and he understands risk and understands managing risk, and he doesn't like taking extra risks that are not necessary.
Right.
And I think that's, if you look at this guy versus Pace Morby is, I mean, if you watch his stuff, it's like, I mean, risk. He doesn't even. I don't know if he even cares about risk or understands.
I don't think he talks about that much. Yeah.
It's irrelevant to him, the risk. So, because if you look at what he's doing, like there is a risk of his entire portfolio disappearing. If something changes with banks or how they deal with these, if they actually do decide to start dealing, because he's operating in a very gray area. So, but he's obviously okay with the risk he's taking. This guy is sitting there going like, well, I don't want to build a 1,000-unit portfolio that is sitting here with a structural risk at the base of it that could be pulled out and removed from me whenever they want to. And like, yeah, if you're going to spend 10 or 20 years building something, do you want to build it on a shaky foundation like that? I mean, I would say not. So, but Pace obviously has a high risk tolerance. The other thing that comes to mind is Arnold Schwarzenegger has these motivational speeches, and he talks about break the rules. You should break the
Get to
rules.
the chopper.
Break the rules. You know, to be successful. Break some of the rules. He says, don't follow all the rules. And I feel like, you know, so I think what Pace Morby is doing is he's breaking some of the rules, and it's not necessarily all bad. But you just
Is
need
he
to understand.
breaking or bending?
Well, I would say he's breaking the rules.
I think so, because I hear breaking the rules is kind of like it's illegal. You can't do this, but obviously he is. So that's why I say bending the rules, because he's bending the rules to his favor.
Read the mortgage. The mortgage says if this house sells and the deed transfers, the mortgage has to be paid off.
Right.
They are transferring the deed and not paying the mortgage off. So by the definition of how the mortgage is written, they are breaking the rules. They're just counting on the fact that the bank doesn't want to do anything about it. So they are breaking the rules. They're just going, well, the bank probably won't do anything about it. And for the most part, I think that's been true. The bank won't do anything about it because banks are lazy. And if you're paying the payment, why would they? Oh, we're collecting money. It's expensive for banks to foreclose on properties. Why would they want to do that? You know, so it's not that he's not breaking the rules; it's that he's just figured that the rule is worth breaking, and the banks usually won't do anything about it.
Yep.
And I think so far that's been true.
Yep. Totally. Go ahead, Brady.
After some quick research, I believe this guy's name is Jason Oppenheim. He's allegedly selling Sunset related. I don't know if he's on it or a producer of it or what his role is, but that's where he comes from, I guess.
Oh, he's like a realtor that sells beach properties?
Allegedly.
Oh,
Allegedly.
I don't know what authority he would have to even speak on the subject then. So anyway, let's go ahead and go.
Which is, you know, if you're selling a house at a 2.5% interest rate, basically, when you take over the loan, then the person can overpay whoever's buying the house. Or what you also see.
Wait, let me ask you a question. I own a $10 million house, right? Let's say I have $5 million of equity, and I have a $5 million loan at 2.5%. And I structure this. Does this guy give me cash up front?
So you could. Yeah.
How much?
100%.
So let's say
it'd be similar to a lease option.
But that cash up front is going to be treated as income, whereas on sale it's treated as long-term capital gains. So now I'm paying 50% tax on the money that he gives me when I could be paying 28% tax.
Or what you could do is just increase the sale price of the home, right?
No,
just go ahead and stop it there.
How's that solved?
Well, you could.
I see what he's trying to do. Yeah.
They asked, you know, is he paying me cash for that, you know, the $5 million of equity? Like, no, that's not happening. That's not how the whole point of these deals is that people are not putting any cash into these deals. That's the whole allure of Sub2 is that they're like no cash deals or low cash deals. So no, no one's giving you $5 million cash for your Sub2 deal. That is ridiculous.
Well, first of all, they could if we're going to keep it super low. But if you already have millions of dollars like that, you don't need to do a Sub2. I mean, having them carry $5 million.
He could get a higher price by doing Sub2 or in his case, if he wanted to get a higher price for it, he would have to sell or finance that $5 million of equity to somebody else and go, you can come in here with a really low down payment. I'll carry back the $4.5 million or whatever. It's called a seller carryback loan at 5% interest or whatever. And then that's a pretty good deal for someone to come into with a low down payment. And that's what would make his property more valuable. This guy doesn't sound like he even really understands how this works. But I do agree with him that they're very dangerous deals. And Pace Morby does not treat them with quite again, my opinion. He's doing it successfully. Obviously, people can do it. I just if I'm going to build a business, I want it to be very solid on a solid foundation. So that's and I don't want to have risk of harming people in the process of the business running, you know. So anyway, I think we covered that one pretty good. I think, Brady, if you want to wrap it up here. James, you want to wrap it up?
Yeah. Hey guys, if you like what you've been hearing, you want to follow us, click the link below. You know, guys, make a comment, whether you like us, whether you don't like us. We don't care. We just want to comment. Preferably you like us, but if there's anything else that anything with Home Guys itself, if you guys want to schedule a consultation with Jaden or myself, again, click the link below and we'll talk. So hey guys, just remember, we made all the mistakes,
so you don't have to.
Have a good
There
one.
it goes.